Good morning again, everyone. I'm Tim D'Andrea with SCORE Northern Arizona. I am the workshops coordinator up here, and I'm also a certified mentor, volunteer in the Arizona chapter. We are presenting our second in a series of locally taught in-person digital marketing workshops. And in partnership with the Small Business Development Center that actually has an office here in this campus of Yavapai College, the Prescott Valley campus. This is wonderful to be here. Some of you are here from last month. We did a great chat GPT session. And today we have a different topic, which is all about search engine optimization. We have another local presenter here, Daniel Hickman, who will come up shortly to talk about that and answer hopefully every question you may have about the subject, which is very deep. We ask that everybody who's here in person please mute their phones for the time being. We will be monitoring the Q&A window on the Zoom call, as we have many people calling in remotely with questions as well. They will be muted. So please bear with us for now on that, but send us your questions and we will try to address them as they come up. If you have comments and you're on Zoom, please use the chat window for if you want to share a tidbit or two. We try to separate the two windows for questions and answers and then just kind of comments. Okay, so before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on SCORE, just a minute or so. And we have a wonderful organization that's been established since 1964. Today, we are 10,000 volunteer mentors, and these are folks like myself, like other folks in the room, Dick and Justin, who are, former business managers, department heads, business owners, some retired, some still working. Thank you, Justin, for making time. And what we do is we provide one-on-one consulting to any startup or established business on pretty much any topic you can come up with in running a small business. The challenges with staffing and retaining staff and fundraising, et cetera. As we go along, we may pull in a subject matter expert from our ranks to come in and help get into the details of any particular subject that might be requiring someone with a little more expertise. The second thing we offer are things like today, a no-cost business training. This is a workshop. We have many workshops at SCORE nationwide that you can attend via Zoom. We're attempting to do something a little more with the local, with some touch and feel, where we can meet in person and give you the experience of the networking and having the more intimate classroom experience. We're doing those here today. Some of our trainings do have a fee from time to time, so most of them are zero cost to the attendee. And then lastly, we have this huge resource library of business planning guides, templates, recorded webinars, forums for pretty much any process you can imagine in small business available to you free of charge. We encourage you to make contact with a mentor. Sign someone up as a coach for you to help you. We can provide things as little as just guiding you through our website. Some folks like the regular in-person or Zoom sessions where we talk in detail about your particular situations and guide you through whatever process you're getting towards. So with that, I think the SBDC folks might speak a little bit at the end.
Sure.
And why don't I turn the camera over to our speaker here, Daniel Hickey, who is the principal of Hickey Marketing Group, which is a Prescott-based digital marketing firm. Daniel?
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And by the way, if you were here, you would receive probably the coolest business card I've ever seen. It is a metal bottle opener, complete with contact information for marketing.
So are you online? Come on and join us next time.
Yeah.
All right, so as Tim mentioned, We appreciate silencing of the phones, but not your mouths. If any of you have ever heard your voice on radio or on an answering machine, hearing your own voice over and over kind of sucks. So I would love any of your participation. If we get to a point where you have a question, please ask that question. This is your time, not mine. So at the end of the day, what we really want to do is just answer some questions regarding SEO. When we bring on a new developer or someone that is doing SEO for our company, it takes about 3 months for them to really understand every technical aspect of SEO. So we're not going to be covering everything today, but we are going to be doing a primer so that we at least understand some best practices, ways to kind of move through it. But really, at the end of the day, all of you have very different goals. And I want to make sure that when you see something pop up that might be of interest to you, we can dig a little bit deeper. If we're going to be answering that on subsequent slides afterwards, I'll let you know that we're going to get to that. But if it's something that you want to take a deeper dive into, I'm happy to do so. So really understanding search engine optimization in 2024, the game has changed every single year. SEO never stays the same. It is constantly updated. Google is making some major changes on a constant basis, and it's really interesting trying to stay ahead of that curve, but it's almost impossible to. So what I want to focus on right now isn't just understanding the algorithm updates and the changes. It's understanding how to think like Google so that you are making good long-term decisions. Because people who chase the algorithm end up making decisions that end up being upended entirely with one algorithm update instead of thinking about what is it that Google actually wants. So just to give you a little bit of background on the company. We've been really lucky. We've been able to work with really large companies, and I say that only to say that one of my big passions is taking some of the big companies that we've worked with and sharing their playbooks with small to mid-sized businesses that have great ideas, but they're at a huge disadvantage if they're not playing the same game. So like, for instance, we work with, really, I say mid-level businesses, but I mean, they would be doing 50 million a year and they were doing really well. But we'd see what they were doing with their marketing budgets and we're like, no big company that we work with would do those things. For instance, like one of the clients we were working with said, we're going to get 5 different billboards, put different call tracking numbers on a split test. And we were like, what did you just say? Like, do you know how much money that split test is going to cost? And they're like, well, that's how it's done. And I'm like, none of these guys would do that. They would put it on the homepage image slider of their website, test the photo. Once they get to 1,000 clicks, then they'd figure out which photo performs the best. Then they'd migrate and they change the call to actions, split test that. And guess what? They haven't spent a dime on billboards, but when they put up 5 of them, they're going to make sure that every single one of those is dialed in before they ever spend a penny on it. And I'd see these small to mid-sized businesses wasting money. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to take some of the information that we got from them and pass it on to the small to mid-sized businesses. One of the things that I mentioned down here is that as seen on, we are going to touch base on that because that is really key and critical. It's not hard to do. Any business that has a good story to tell can get their stories published in Fox and NBC and CBS. Like, these reporters are looking for information. And that can lead to gigantic backlinks and wins, which help with SEO, which we're going to get to in a little bit as well. So the first thing we need to answer, and I really appreciate all of you being here because every successful person I know has given up things for education, whether it's TV, whether it's time out with friends, having coffee, their favorite coffee bar instead of being here. You guys have chose education and I love that and I appreciate that. But one of the first things we have to ask is, why does SEO even matter? This kind of blew my mind because I've been saying the wrong thing prior to this presentation because the number hasn't changed that much. Normally, back, just even 6 months ago when Google did this number, they look at what happens when you rank number 1 for a particular keyword. The answer's always been pretty much the same. You'd get about 34.5% of the traffic if you ranked number 1, because some people would click on a Facebook page, some people would click on Yelp, some people would click on a review website, some people would click on the Google My Business profile. But the number 1 spot would normally get about 34% of organic traffic. That number's changed and it's up to almost 40%. So that's huge. If you look at number 2, that drops to less than half. So right now, if you're number 2, you get 18% of the traffic. Number 3 position gets 10%. Position 4 gets 7%. Under that, you're in the really low single digits. But if you think about the difference between ranking number 9 and number 11, how many times have any of you in this room gone to the second page of Google? It is like 0.01%. You have to really be looking for something specific. So this is why SEO matters, because if you rank number one, there's 10,000 people a month searching for your product or service. You're gonna get 40% of that traffic at number one. That is gigantic for anybody's business because you're not paying for that traffic, it's earned, which is absolutely huge. This is an example of one of the things that we were looking at with the brand new client launch that we did. So we were looking at like May 2023. This is a website that they've had up and running, but we launched their SEO campaign. They had a lot of technical issues. This one is a wild one, and this is not normal because when you look at this, they had something insane. When we did a site audit for them, they had a robot.txt file on there, which is Niles. I'm super glad he's here. He's from Century CTO and has a lot of background information on all this stuff, and I'll just get everything set up here, but you know what that means, but they didn't. And that basically is an indicator to Google that, hey, our website's not ready, please don't index it. And that is a great tool when you're building a website that's not ready for prime time. However, so many people, when they're building on Wix, they're building on Squarespace, they're building on WordPress, they don't realize that they need to, once they're out of development, undo that request for Google to index their website. This is a business that was around for over 2 years and they never undid that. Yeah,
Can you repeat what it was that was the phrase that was indexed?
definitely. So
Repeat the question so the people online can hear.
absolutely. So the question that we had is, what was that actual thing called that prevented Google from indexing their website? The technical term is a robot.txt file, which basically is telling Google, hey, we are developing our website, but we are requesting that you not crawl it and or index it because at the end of the day, it's not quite ready. A lot of the times though, people forget when they take their website live to take that off so that Google can find the website. If you are on Wix, there is a portion in there that it just says search engine and it's probably like a yes or no. Do you want Google to index, yes or no? If you have no clicked in there, you could be going for years like, why are we not gaining traction? We're blogging, we're doing the things, but you've literally requested that Google not index your website. Then the second part for like WordPress, if you go under the profile section, you click general options and then reading, it says right into their search engines. There's a checkbox that says request that Google not index your website. That's what it means. You're literally telling Google, we're still building. We'll tell you when we're ready, but so many businesses fail to do that. That's why that's the number one thing that we want to look at. This was an established business that as soon as we undid that, we saw this jump. And as soon as we started content, which we'll get to, we saw that. So after that, they were sitting at about 32.5% of all search clicks. We're going to them just for making 2 minor adjustments. Oh, and I saw a question there too as well.
I'm on WordPress
Yes,
and it's already released. So like my website's already out.
perfect.
So out of curiosity, when I go onto the profile, I would have to uncheck it then, right?
Usually, so
Please repeat the question.
yes, so the question was on WordPress. If a website has already been launched, how do we check that? So there is a setting right there, and it's usually under read settings, depending on the setup that you have. But when you click read, and then at the bottom of that, it'll have a check mark that basically says, you know, do you want Google to index your website? And then if you uncheck that, then that basically says, perfect, we're ready. Please check out our website. If that's not checked, you've basically still told Google that you're still in development and you're not ready for them to index the website. So it's really key, it's really critical, and it's one of those things where we've had conversations with prospects, with clients, and they're like, I don't get it. Everything that we do is just, it seems like it's not working. And then we go in there and we check that one thing that's like, yep, we've literally told Google, no thanks. And that's where it all came from. So that's why SEO really matters in understanding. Yeah,
Sorry,
no, not at all.
is indexing when you are telling Google not to, or is indexing when you're telling Google to?
That's a really good question. So the question was, what is indexing? And indexing is really not something that you do, it's what Google does. So basically when Google crawls the web and they find something, they index that in their search engine. So basically, there's a lot of really bad names in SEO and I hate it. Indexing is one of those. So indexing is really just Google recognizing content and then putting it up and saying, we see that this would have value when people search this particular thing and at least considering you for one thing or another when it comes to search. But when you put a no index tag on your website, you're asking them not to recognize it yet because you're not quite ready. So this is really just, this is not something I want to go over too much, but the one thing I want to really kind of look at is the history of SEO. So 1991 is really the first website launched and indexed by Google. And you can see all of these are major changes that have happened going up to 2019 and beyond. When you look at some of these changes, the one that I really wanted to talk about was 2011 Panda, because we were doing a lot of keyword research. We were doing a lot of SEO for our clients at that time when that hit. And me understanding SEO at the time got this really brilliant idea. I was going to stay up all night because we had a lot of clients calling us saying, our entire business shifted overnight. What happened? And looking at it, it was like, oh, you used to rank number 3, but you're on page 12 now. And it was because Google released 3 big keyword updates at the same time. Penguin, Panda, and exact match domain. We don't need to really worry about all those are, but I wrote about a 30-page document all about what that is, and it was called, I thought brilliantly, Penguin, Panda, exact match domain and what it means for your website. And we had like 4,000 people visit our website in the first 24 hours that was launched. Weird thing happened though. Nothing. We didn't get any phone calls. We didn't get any new clients. Nothing happened. And one of our developers came up to me afterwards and they're like, hey, I love the article. That was awesome. But you know, we wouldn't do that for a client, right? I was like, do what, right? Great content about current events. That's exactly what we do. They're like, but we would have done the keyword research first. And I was like, we don't need to do the keyword research because I already know what these things are called. They're like, they're not going to like this, but when we looked at the IP addresses of people hitting the website, it's very likely that all of these were other marketing firms that you just taught everything that you know, and none of it hit the people that matter. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so what should it have been titled? And they were like, well, I did the keyword research and #1 search today after the shakeup is, why can't I find my website on Google? #2 is, I can't find my website. So we failed to do what we always do, and that's writing content people are asking for, which we're going to hit in a few slides. But I wanted to do that to kind of illustrate and get in your minds the point of writing articles that people want. So many times people say, I tried that blogging thing you talked about, didn't work. And we look at the articles and they are the best articles that no one ever asked for. That's what I did. But instead of no one asking for it, we just trained our entire competition. When we renamed that article, within 72 hours, we had to shut down the agency for 3 months and have a wait list on the homepage of the website because we were finally answering questions that people were asking, not our competitors. So that's key. So understanding the algorithm updates is important, but what I really want to illustrate here, businesses don't have time to chase the algorithm. So instead, I want to teach you how Google thinks and how Google works. So that you can be a good partner for them, because as soon as you do that, everything changes. One of the things that we kind of want to look at is components of SEO. One of those is what Google considers and calls on-page SEO. These are one of the easiest things to control. So one of the things that I've done for a long time is asking people in a room, if we're doing a full live session or a training, let's try to trick Google. And let's try to find a point where this doesn't work. And one of the things that we know is if you don't have a page dedicated to a service on your website, you are very unlikely to rank for it. Because what Google wants is to keep people using Google. And if you just keep that in your mind, you're going to win. Google doesn't want someone to search for a product and or service and find a bad search result. The first spot, second spot, third spot. And then go to Bing, go to Yahoo, go to DuckDuckGo or a competitive search engine. Because if that person changes that to their default browser, Google can no longer make money on that person until they change it back. That's not a good thing for them, and that's all they really care about. So we want to make sure that our search hits are perfect. So
Then please repeat, if you don't have a page dedicated to what?
a page dedicated to each product and/or service. So for example, one of the women in the front row at one of the speaking engagements that we did all about this, we were like, let's try to trick Google. Let's get real niche. And basically it's what Google calls a long tail, which is a long string of keywords to make up a search query. And we're like, what are you into? She's like, I just got into running. I love it. It's amazing. We're like, okay, great. What's your favorite brand of running shoes? I love Nike. What's your favorite color? Green. What size shoe do you wear? 7. We're like, okay, so we did green Nike running shoes in women's size 7. And guess what? Nike wasn't the first search hit up. Weird. because they should have everything in inventory there. But they didn't have a page dedicated to green running shoes for women in size 7. You know who did? Zappos. Zappos figured it out and they had a page for everything. So Google said, hey, if I send you to Nike, I'm going to be able to put you on the women's running shoes page. But then you're going to have to spend all your time sorting by green, by size, by all of these other things. That's not a good customer experience. That's not like going to Nordstrom. That's like going to Home Depot. Or all of a sudden it's like, hey, where's this? And like, it's somewhere over there. Like you can go find it, have fun. Versus Nordstrom where they grab you by the hand and they're like, I will show you where this is, and they take you there. That's what Google wants to be. And you help them by being that when you have one page for everything. So if you run a plumbing company and you have 10 services, have a page for drain cleaning. Have a page for everything that you have, because if someone types in drain cleaning Preston or any of those things and you don't have a page for it, think about what that means to Google. How likely are they to send somebody to your website? And then, okay, well, they have to click on your homepage. Then they have to click on services, look to see if you provide it, scroll down, and it's just a bullet point that says drain cleaning, but it doesn't say what causes clogged drains. It doesn't say how much it costs to clear them. None of that stuff. So for Google, that's not a good search hit. So you are automatically putting yourself at the top of this. So on-page SEO is number 1, having a page for everything that you do. Number 2 is titling it properly. So having it called drain cleaning services in Preston. That /that tells Google exactly what it is that you do and what they should rank you for. The other thing is making sure that you have content for that. Anything under 300 words, Google usually looks at as thin content. So if you just have a page that says drain cleaning, yes, we do that. Google's like, that's not really worth indexing, which we talked about earlier, is Google basically looking and saying, yes, we found a page for that we can serve up for particular queries. So that is really key. Making sure that you have 300 to 500 words about that is about the sweet spot. Anything over that, people aren't going to read, and it kind of overwhelms them. But 300 to 500 words is kind of key. That's critical. That's a really good point. The other word is keywords. So we're going to get into, great, how do we actually find those keywords to make sure that we have there? And one of the other elements is making sure that you have the right tags in place. And what that basically means is in Wix, Squarespace, WordPress isn't great about this. You actually have to download a plugin. We highly recommend plugins called, one of our favorites is Yoast, and it allows you to do a title tag and or description. And what that is, if you're on the homepage of Google and you see that blue line there, that's your title. And if you don't put one there, Google's going to pull something from your website that it thinks fits, and 90% of the time it's not great. So if you title your page, for the best drain cleaning services in Prescott, click here. That's awesome. That's a great call to action. It says drain cleaning, it says Prescott. That's something that's likely to get clicks. And you have the control to add that. I'd say about 85% of the websites we look at don't even add a tag. They leave it up to Google. Yes.
Sorry, Daniel, what was that extension called again?
So there's a plugin called Yoast for WordPress, but on Squarespace, on Wix, on almost all of them, they do have options to add what's called a description tag, a title tag. Those are also important because Google is giving you the opportunity to sell on their homepage, and missing that is a big deal. So really when it comes to on-page SEO, we could spend 3 hours on this, so we're kind of going to churn through some of it, but really making sure you have your titles, making sure that you have content, making sure you have a page for everything. That is really the basis of on-page SEO. Second thing is off-page SEO. So it's really important what you think about your website and what you think about your brand, but nothing is more important to Google than what other people think about it. And there was this real big mystery that was going on for a while that smart SEO agencies figured out pretty early on, but it still bothered a lot of people. If you were to Google the words click here into Google for years, the #1 search result was Adobe Acrobat. The reason it was a mystery and it bothered so many SEO specialists is if you went to their website, you looked at the code, not one place did it say click here. There was not one button. There wasn't one piece of text. There was nothing that said click here. So everyone's racking their brains trying to figure it out while other people were looking off the website to see what people saw. And what we saw was hundreds of thousands of websites with PDFs that said, if you can't read this document, click here, _, highlight, link back to Adobe Acrobat. to download the latest version of Adobe Acrobat. So when Google sees a link back to a website, whether you're a shooting range, whether you're a plumber, any of those, that says, oh my God, it's a review and it says, oh my gosh, this is the best plumbing company in Prescott. This is the best shooting range in Prescott. Every time they see a link coming back for plumber, for shooting range, for flight school, for any of those things, that is called anchor text, what the actual words are that lead back. Google looks at that and says, wow, people are voting for this company for this thing. So now all of a sudden, people are able to rank for things that they don't even talk about on their website. So that click here mystery got solved pretty quickly. One of those things we look at is backlinks. So if you have Facebook posts, it's really important to send some links from Facebook to your website. It's free, it's there, you can do that. Links in your bio on social media. As many links as you can get back are awesome. And one of the reasons that we put some of those as seen on is because if you have a really cool piece of technology, like an amazing service, public service announcement on anything that you are an expert at, and you start writing press releases, you start sharing articles with people who, reporters who you know have talked about that. That's really important. Spamming reporters almost never works, but if you follow someone and you're like, okay, they talk about aviation, we do aviation, sending them an email like, hey, I've seen all your articles on aviation technology. We just wanted to share this really cool thing that we're doing. They're very likely to post that. But the amazing thing is when they do, and they send a link to your website, their website has so much authority because they're a news outlet that Google gives you credit for that. So backlinking is so important. Social media engagement, brand dimensions, Google tracks it all. They really, really look at absolutely everything. But the two things I really want to focus on that are really key and important, and the cool thing is they're free. They used to cost a lot of money to have an agency with the tools to do. They're all free now. Mobile friendliness is really key. Google started what they call mobile first indexing, and that basically means that before smartphones became so prominent, they would look at a website based on the desktop version, and they would rank it based on that, and mobile followed. However, as it got to 40% of all searches, 50%, now it's over 60% of all searches start on the smartphone. Google looks at that and says, okay, we're going to start indexing based on mobile first, because that's where our clients are. So they look at how mobile friendly is your website. And if you just type in mobile friendly checker into Google, Google has their own tool. You can actually check how mobile friendly your website is. It'll give you a score and it will help you kind of see what that looks like. Number two is page speed. So if you have a page that isn't ranking well, and we see this all the time, clients send us their beautiful websites when we start working with them. And we start looking at it and we're like, did you notice that? And we've all seen it where the header image loads almost line by line. And then we drag it off onto the desktop and we're like, oh, that's a 10 megabyte image. They took a beautiful picture and uploaded the whole thing lossless. But if you're on a slow Wi-Fi network, if you don't have a Wi-Fi network and you're working off data, that page might take 40 seconds to load because of that really beautiful image they're so proud of. So making sure that your images are small enough to load is key. But also if you go to Google and you type in page speed test, Google's will always be the first one up. They can give you lighthouse scores and all these other things that they look at, but none of that technical really matters, except for you could actually test your website at any given moment. And it's really key. The other thing for backlinking is guest posting. If you look at a website that is also about something that you do, you have a really amazing range, you have great instructors, and you want to say, hey, I'm going to hit up USCCA and see if we can do a guest article for them because we have this expert in this particular thing. And they let you guest post, they're getting free content, but you're getting a free backlink, and you're also gaining authority there. There's almost always places that you could go for synergy to go back and forth. So guest posting is another huge opportunity there. Final one is technical SEO. So when it comes down to these issues, there are also places that you test that. I don't want to go into too much of this because, like I said, this could be, see Niles light up because he knows what all of this fun stuff is, but it could take a week going through all of these elements, but just making sure that we don't have any major issues. And the one thing I did want to hit on was that robot.txt file that I mentioned in the very beginning, because it doesn't matter what you do, how nice you're being to Google, how dressed up and ready you are to go when you have a sign outside that says, Google, please go away. That's what that is. So that's the number one thing that we want to see, the number one thing that we see issues with. One thing to touch on really quick, because it still blows my mind, but I see it still quite often, is we have people call us up to engage our services, and we go to their website and it says site not secure. And they don't have that little green padlock, they don't have HTTPS, there is no SSL certificate. It's just telling Google that, hey, don't trust this website because someone can steal somebody's data. And Google will never rank that well because they want to give people a great search experience. And having your data stolen on a website, definitely not what they're looking for and not a great experience. So one of the things that we really need to look for is how do we find our keywords? And there's a couple of amazing tools. Moz Keyword Explorer, pretty cool. SEMrush, Keyword Explorer, also really cool. There's a lot of free tools out there that will help you to find keywords, help you avoid that really dumb mistake that I made with my penguin panda exact match domain, best article that no one ever asked for except for our competitors. This is what we do to avoid that. And we will never skip this stuff ever again since that issue over a decade ago. We will never forget what that felt like. So let's just say that we started a hiking club, or we ran a company like Hike Shack that sold, hiking gear. Well, we want to write articles for that. But how do we know what to title those articles? What to name the images? That's one thing I want to touch on too, is naming images. I can't tell you how many times you will see somebody's website not rank well. They'll have us do a technical SEO audit, but before we even get technical, we'll just drag one of the images off their website onto our desktop and look at the name. And it's like iPhone 486 by 231. And I'm like, oh, perfect. That tells Google one thing only. It's taken on an iPhone and the dimensions. It doesn't say, couple hiking at Granite Mountain in Prescott. Okay, cool. Google's like, this website's about hiking in Prescott. And oh yeah, by the way, Google's brain, or a big chunk of it for a long time, has been Wikipedia. So they look at Wikipedia and they say, okay, tell us about Prescott. Oh, Granite Mountain, View, these things. Okay, that all checks out. Rank this a little bit higher for hiking in Prescott. Is Granite Mountain there? Yes.
So you're saying that when we save images for our website, the image name is actually given to Google. It can see that, and that's what you're talking about?
It's huge. And
That's crazy.
this thing's like, it feels like we have a long time, but that actually goes into ADA compliance, which is a completely different topic. But websites actually need to be ADA compliant now. We're seeing a lot of lawsuits happen for websites that aren't ADA compliant. First
ADA.
one started in 2019 against Domino's. Someone couldn't order a pizza because they were hearing impaired, visual impaired, or like whatever that looked like, and they were awarded $2 million. Since then, every attorney who saw that said, ooh, this is our new slip and fall. So they're going to websites and they're looking at, okay, are you ADA compliant? If not, here's a $5,000 demand letter to make it go away. And then we get these panic phone calls from people we've never heard of saying, can you do this? But yep, but it goes back to that. If your image is named iPhone 486 by 331, what ends up happening is someone who's visually impaired and is usually using a screen reader, when they roll over that image, your name is what tells them what that is. So for Google, they're like, okay, this is really bad customer service for our visually impaired clients, which means when they scroll over that, instead of hearing them say, couple hiking at View using brand new hiking backpack at sunset. They're like, thank you. I'm visually impaired, but you helped me to imagine and see what's on that website, just like the people who aren't visually impaired. Google loves that because if not, we're alienating. According to them, about 4.5% of people use some type of screen reader device, whether it's just to make the text larger or smaller or to stop animations. But yeah, like I said, that's a completely different topic, but it does go into SEO and ADA compliance. Because,
ADA, okay.
yeah,
What you just said, ADA compliant, lawyers looking for it.
Yeah.
Versus using, like we're using ADA accessible.
yes.
So we're not going, here you go, we have to ramp according to the deal. However, if it's off a half an inch, there's an attorney going, you're not ADA compliant.
Correct.
So ADA accessible is more user friendly and less likely.
Yes. And there are accessibility widgets. There's a lot of things that can help you make your website more accessible. However, those are band-aids. Nothing takes the place of you actually having an image. And but let's use the plumbing example. Like if you have a image on your website, 3 images on a page. So you did the 300 to 500 words talking about, drain clearing. Then you had somebody else looking at that website and you had 3 images on there. And you said, plumber in Prescott, clearing drain in Prescott Lakes. That's amazing. Google looks at it and they're like, okay, this is a local plumber in Prescott, clearing a drain. Yes, we looked at this, Prescott Lakes actually isn't, it all checks out. It's great, but for visually impaired people, they can immediately look at that and say, thank you, like, I get the entire picture. So images are huge. So let's go into this for a second, say that we own that company. We're able to look here, and let's just say that we were like, oh man, people are looking for like clubs, like I know it. We have people come into our store every day and they're asking like, are there hiking clubs I can join and all of those things? Let's write an article about it. Sounds cool, but that's very different than what people do online. So we look at it, we're like, okay, the Prescott Hiking Club is only 90. That's not really, we'd have to get 100% of that in order to actually make a difference. However, okay, let's do a monthly blog about the different hiking trails in Prescott. And you know what's gonna happen the first month? Nothing. What's gonna happen the second month? Probably nothing. What's gonna happen the third month? Probably nothing. But as your website starts to build all of these articles about hiking trails in Prescott, you're like, oh my gosh, they covered Peavine, they covered Iron King, they covered Thumb Butte. As you have 10 or 20 articles there, your website very likely will be the most comprehensive website about hiking trails in Prescott, and then watch what happens to your search rankings. That's exactly, and SEO is not fun, and most people will stick with it. It feels just like eating, writing, going to the gym. You eat right and you go to the gym for a day, you know what happens? Nothing. You know what happens after a week? Pretty much nothing. You know what happens a year later? You're unrecognizable. Like it's just a complete thing, and that's what SEO is. Unfortunately, it really is looking at all this. But this is basically pulled directly out of SEMrush. It's free. Yeah,
I was just gonna ask what that's a screenshot of, so you.
I love it. No, well, mind reading. I like it. All right, so yeah, this is out of SEMrush, and it is free. They have paid programs, but they will also give you just this list of keywords complimentary. The paid version has a lot of other data that most companies honestly don't need. So I specifically did this just to show you what you'd be getting for free. But keyword research is absolutely key and critical. The other thing that we wanted to look at is content. Content is absolutely key. And one of the things that
I just want to ask really quick on the page before this, what did you type in to get all those results? Did you like plug the article in or?
so this is so cool. So SEMrush has a new tool that basically you type in what you think your keyword is, and it says, congrats, you're on the right track. That has 43 clicks per month. However, here's our suggested list. And they're basically pulling that directly from Google Analytics data. So Google can basically look at it and say, here's what people are doing based on their ads. So their ad platform has such amazing data. And extra credit if you're running Google Ads. Because if you're running Google Ads, you have tools that are far beyond this. Because Google wants you to be successful in naming the ad properly, because they want you to keep paying for it. So if you have Google Ads, you have a suite of tools that goes so far beyond this, it's not even funny. We're just pretending that you're not running Google Ads, you don't have access to that, you want a free tool. This is amazing for that, but the data is out there. Yeah.
Daniel, did you say SEO Rush?
SEM.
SEM Rush.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's amazing. There's so many really cool things. Now this, yeah,
So I'm trying to understand it. So SEO is basically like, I'm sorry, the website's like the house, and then you have to figure out how to make your house how Google wants it. And that's what's gonna drive traffic, correct?
pretty much.
Okay.
So, and I'm really glad you asked
Like
that.
I get a
'cause
gold
that's
star.
an awesome-
analogy.
No, I love that, because that's an awesome primer for this. Content is king, and this word is so important. And I want to go off on what seems like a tangent, but it's not. Yeah, I'm gonna get ahead of myself because I think this fits really well here because of that question. Who knows? Okay, so Google, obviously the number one search engine in the world. Anyone know who the second is? Yeah, 100%. I love that. Most people do not realize it's not Yahoo, it's not Bing, it's YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. And when you think about that, they're both owned by Google. So
Okay.
what does Google want? Let's really look at that. We had a client that brought us on and they wanted to really increase their YouTube following, their reach, that entire thing. And their videos were kind of amazing. Problem was, they would post them whenever they were ready. And we said, hey, if we're gonna work with you, like, we're gonna say a few things you're not gonna like. And we're gonna make a few demands that are gonna be hard to keep, but we gotta do it. And we didn't change their videos, we didn't change their tags, we didn't change any of the technical stuff. What we told them to do is you have to post every single week, Saturday at 7 p.m. If it's 7:01, it doesn't count. If it's 6:59, it doesn't count. And you can schedule it in YouTube so it's exact. And they skyrocketed from like 450 views to 15 to 20,000 per. And it's actually not magic if you think about what just happened. YouTube makes money based on how many ads they can put in your video. So let's just, for easy math, say that you got 100 subscribers to your channel, and on average, you got 100 views. And Google could play one ad worth $1. Well, your video just made them $100. The grand scheme of things, YouTube isn't doing any happy dance over that. It's not that big of a deal for them. However, if they saw you posting every single week without fail, what does their algorithm do? It's going to be incentivized to push you up through the rankings because of your consistency. Because now all of a sudden we know that company A is posting once a week. Company B is posting way better videos. They're just doing it when they're ready, and we have no idea how to figure out how much money we're going to make off of this company because they're so inconsistent. So if we get this company, company A, to 100,000 subscribers and 100,000 views per video, which is what you want, it's also what Google/YouTube wants. Because now all of a sudden, if you look at that, they're making $100,000 per video with no extra effort on their end. They're just helping to promote that channel because of the consistency. It's the same thing with blogging. So create that blogging schedule. And I really want to make this as easy as possible. Everyone looks at this and says, it's too time consuming. I'll never be able to do it. Only if we're not doing it strategically. One of the things that we highly recommend is think about your blog post, create that blog post. Then don't go to social media and be like, well, now I have to create a social media post. That's a whole nother thing. You have to create an email newsletter. That's a whole different thing. Then we need to do PR, which is a whole different thing. And this is another thing that we see all the time that businesses spend way too much money on. Small businesses, the large ones don't. They don't have a PR team and an SEO team and a social media team. They have one team that does it all. Where they say, okay, great. We just came up with the blog post. Why wouldn't we make an abbreviated version of that? It's just 2 seconds with a really cool kind of clickbaity title. You know, the hiking trail that even most Prescott locals don't know about. And then all of a sudden it's a couple sentences and click here to learn more, and it sends them back to your website. You're getting direct traffic from that. And it's still just the same blog post that you did. But now you're reiterating that on social media. Then after that, you have your email newsletter. Well, that should just be that first paragraph about, you know, the greatest hiking trails that even Prescott locals don't know about. That's interesting. I live here. I hike. Great. I want to know about those. You click on that. Now that's direct traffic. You just trained Google that their only source of traffic isn't Google. So Google realizes like, oh, we should probably rank these guys because at the end of the day, they're not reliant totally on us. And people are looking for them on social media, direct traffic, which is from the email newsletter link. Okay, people are finding them aside from us. So if they're looking for them and can't find them on Google, they might look on another search engine. Going back to that first kind of conversation we had about what Google doesn't want, they don't want a trending company not to be found. So show them that you're trending. The final piece, why not? It's going to be a low hit rate. Don't get discouraged. If you send a press release out every month for a year, you'll probably get picked up 2 or 3 times. It's a low hit rate, but when it hits, it is amazing. So let's say that you talk about hiking and the value it has for people's health. And you say, okay, we have Prescott Healthy Living magazine. I wonder if they'd be interested. And you send it to them. If they pick that article up and it was indexed on your website, Google looks at them and says, oh, wow, major publications are plagiarizing this hiking company. That means that they have the authority. The news media outlet is talking about it. That's awesome. That's huge. So it doesn't have to be hard. You can literally write 1 piece of content a month. That's it. And be done with all of your marketing from that point. So yeah, we're running out of time. So yeah.
We've got till noon.
Okay, perfect.
So John has a question.
Yeah, please.
So he's heard that WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace mentioned several times, but is it fair to say that this also is the same for Shopify?
Absolutely. So e-commerce is kind of a different.
And are there any specific differences to hosting on Shopify that entrepreneurs should be aware of?
100%. So Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, like all of the kind of do-it-yourself builders are very similar. So at the end of the day, they usually have the same features, and being able to rank in Google is key. If Shopify said, hey, we have a great platform to do anything about the business really, really quickly. So they all have tools. It's just finding those. And if you were to Google adding title tags in Shopify, you will find an entire article about their best practices they have there. Same thing with descriptions. The one thing with Shopify that we see really is the biggest problem is when you have hundreds of products, you are uploading those. If you don't have the name right, and you haven't done the keyword research to figure out how to name your images and your pages and your categories, you're in deep trouble. So when it comes to Shopify and e-commerce, it's a different ballgame, but it's not. Just from the standpoint that you really need to think about all of your products and say, what category is this filling? So let's say that we had a hiking backpack, we had hiking shoes, we had hiking boots, we had 50 different things for hiking. Can we name all of those hiking and then create the best and most comprehensive hiking page for products that we can? So you have to think about it a little bit differently when it's a product versus a service, especially e-com. But yeah, e-commerce is amazing, but it's more competitive. So it's even more critical that we get all of these steps back.
Thank you. And I apologize, this webinar ends at 11:30.
Okay, perfect. No, we're good. All right.
Sorry.
So understanding Google. Understanding what they want is how about. We kind of alluded to consistency. Yes.
About last slide. Okay, so if I created like one blog a month, that would you feel like that would be sufficient, right? Like to put in different pockets.
Okay, so you bring up a really good point.
Cause I already write for my other one, my Instagram, so I'm trying to figure out like the other components of how I can immerse everything together.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where it gets interesting.
Uh-huh.
So when it comes to SEO, it really freaks me out when a client or a potential client calls me up and they're like, hey, we asked so-and-so how much for SEO and they told us right off the bat this much. Or this many blogs or this many, and I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Because I mean, for our team, it takes us like 3 days to do a proposal for SEO because there's so many different things that we need to figure out. And if you think about it, there's only 10 spots on the homepage of Google. What really matters is those are the 10 people that you're running a race against. So it's almost like if you went to a coach and said, hey, I'm going to be doing the Whiskey 50 marathon or the bike race this year. I want to come in first. I want to hire you to get me there. What's it going to take? Their first question needs to be, who are you racing against? Because if you have an Olympic level athlete that is coming out to race against you, they're like, I'll tell you what I need. Like, I'm moving into your house and you're eating everything I tell you. We're biking 6 hours a day because this guy from Spain is coming and he never loses. That's very different than, oh man, we looked at the field. Like everyone's sitting on their couch eating potato chips, like give me 45 minutes a day and I got you there. That's what it really looks like. So you need to look at your competition and really say, what are they doing? Because right now, the only way to get to number one in Google is to unseat the person who currently is number one in Google. So how strong are they? So when we're doing SEO for a company here in Prescott, and this is the cool thing. So being local to Prescott, it's usually much less expensive. It's much faster. It's much easier to achieve results because most companies in Prescott aren't in that super hyper competitive mindset that you get from companies in LA, New York, Chicago. Their budgets are nonsense. Like it's just insane because they're trying to up in a competitor. And just so we all know too, like this isn't a class about Google Ads, but anyone who doesn't understand how Google Ads works, it's very important because it also comes back to how SEO works. Let's say that I started company A and Niles and I were competing for the same group of clients. And he was like, that Daniel guy's got to go. He's bidding $8 a click. I want to be ahead of him, $9. I'm like, Niles, $10. Oh, no, 15 or 20. And it's a bid system basically where Google looks at the quality of your ad, but the number one thing they look at is how much are you willing to spend to get to that number one spot. So while Niles and I are having a shootout about our business, Google's just cashing the checks and taking them straight to the bank. Like, it's kind of crazy. SEO is the same way. Google looks at it and says, what is the single best page, the single best blog post, the single best all of those things that we can put in here. But on the same note, when your competitors start to kind of get in with the mix, that's key too. Moz, that's another reason I do like that platform. Because when you run reports in Moz, you don't just run reports on yourself, you run them on your top 3 competitors. So a lot of the times we'll give a client a call and we're like, hey, we need to up what we're doing. And they're like, why? We rank #1. I was like, check this out. Your competitor that wasn't a concern 6 months ago, they hired an SEO firm, they're doing something in-house, they are aggressive. They went from number 8 to number 3 in the process of 3 weeks, and they're writing 8 blog posts a month. If that happens, we better write 9. You know what I mean? So it's a race. So it's a
So
really,
you're constantly like in some way, like one-upping each other.
yeah, because Google's trying to figure out what is the best website
Okay.
for this particular question. And we need to make sure that we're always that. So let's say that you have 350 words, you have 2 images and an infographic. And that's kept you #1 for 5 years. Now all of a sudden, someone else takes over. You're like, well, what happened? I can almost promise you what that's going to look like. They have 700 words, really good links to other companies that are reputable for that to give them in their article reputability. And then they probably have a YouTube video crammed right in there as well, because they're like, hey, if someone wants to read about how to become a competitive shooter, okay, great. You can read about that. If they don't want to read about it, they can click that video. They can also watch it. And the double thumbs up, understanding what Google wants. Well, they found that search result in Google where they can now put ads to make money. Or if they click that cool little video from YouTube, they can play ads to also make money. So when we look at that website, we're like, what does Google want? Well, we just gave it all. Here's a video in YouTube.
I was just curious, 2 things. One, you have pricing online
For different
for your
services.
services? Yeah. Do you have your services priced online?
Like I said, it's anyone who gives a price for SEO is out of their mind, because if we, like, let's just say, for instance, we had a client call us and they're an attorney in Chicago. Their pricing would be about 20 times what it would be for someone else, because their pay-per-click budget was like 60 grand a month. Because they keep doing this with their competitors. If someone said, hey, we own a local company and we put up Christmas lights in Yavapai County, and your budget's gonna be a couple $100, not multiples of thousands, because we look at the competition and we're like, man, you could do pretty close to nothing and be the best in Google. And the other thing is, a reputable marketing firm will also tell you marketing should be less expensive over time. It shouldn't be this thing where they come back to you like, hey, we're doing great, we need to up your budget by 10 grand. Hey, we're doing great, we need to, why? Like, one of your main goals should be to build a great email newsletter, so that at the end of the day, like, look at Yeti. Their marketing budget was out of hand when they first started, but it was because they wanted to gain market share. They wanted to build an empire. Now, when's the last time you've seen a billboard or they don't have to? Literally, they just throw out an email newsletter because their email list reached that critical mass where they know when we send an email newsletter out, it goes to X amount of people. X amount of those people make a purchasing decision, and they can sell out with any product that they make with an email newsletter. So at that point, their SEO budget goes down, their pay-per-click budget goes down. Your goal as a marketer should always be to make your marketing less expensive over time, not more. So yeah, it's tough with that. And there's a lot of variables, but it's that racing type of thing.
Follow-up question with that competitive race
Yeah.
to the ad dollars. Do you stay industry exclusive with clients?
So no, we do have industries where we serve more than others. So, but at the end of the day, like, the numbers are the numbers. But it really depends, and it's critical that the business owner knows their numbers really well, because we want to start backwards. Like, when a client says how much for SEO, we're like, whoa, there's 50 questions before that. We've had a lot of clients hire us in the room after meeting with 3 other firms, and we're like, whoa, what happened? And they're like, I just realized these other firms that just gave us a pre-printed sheet with pricing couldn't possibly do a good job for us without asking those 5 questions. It's like going to the doctor and they give you pills, but they never did blood work. You're like, what did you give me and why? So at the end of the day, it's really figuring out where we are and where we need to be. So a good question is, hey, We're selling 5,000 products a month. We need to get to 7,500. What's that take? Because now you can do the math backwards and say, okay, what's your closing percentage? What's your conversion rate online? And then work backwards from there. So yeah, it's pretty critical. Yeah.
So we work with a lot of new clients, know nothing about internet, any of them. It sounds like you're gonna have to have CEO expertise. The life of their, you know, that's their way to get their marketing done these days. It's like having a CPA, you gotta have that. So maybe an ideal way is they have their own and hire a firm like yours to get the expertise and get the training at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because it change, as you said, it changes, it goes over time, never goes away.
And that's a really good point. So the kind of point here was a lot of companies need someone in-house to understand these things, but then also not necessarily need to hire a marketing firm to do every little piece of it, but just someone to guide them through the process and make sure to keep them on track. It's kind of like a personal trainer. Instead of someone doing it all for you, they're teaching you how to do it so that you can get that done. And that's a really good point, because at the end of the day, no one knows more about their industry than the heads of that particular company. And getting them on the right track is key. And that's another point, like when it comes to pricing, like when we do proposals, we tell clients all the time, redline whatever you want. If you have someone in-house that you're like, no, we hired Sharon and she has a journalism degree and she's awesome. I don't want you paying for something that you can do in-house, but anything you can do in-house, you cannot be paying. And the marketing firm you're working with should also not be saying, well, you have to do it all through us. No, it should be a partnership between marketing firm and company. Yeah.
As a new person just getting started, how do I determine if I'm like in over my head on SEO stuff?
So
This is a lot.
it is, really what it comes down to is testing. So I mean,
Okay.
one thing I'd make sure to do, and everyone in this room should do, make a list of the top 5 things that are a layup for your website. You're like, okay, we should very well rank for this particular thing. Like, you know, let's go back to the plumbing thing. If you were a plumbing company in Prescott and you say our number 1 thing that we get calls for is drain cleaning. Now, if you typed in drain clearing or drain cleaning Prescott and you're not on the first page, you're in over your head. If you rank number 3, you're doing pretty well. You just need to do more of it. But if you type in like your top 5 services plus your location and you're nowhere to be found, you might have one of those major technical issues. So yeah, that's kind of what we look at there. And then going through a couple of these other, yeah.
Sorry, there's a few questions from the remote
Absolutely.
folks, if we can take a sec. So
Sure.
Mark was asking, what size images do you recommend for a website with a lot of high res images that you want to have high mobile search performance?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So Google does not like to see JPEGs. They don't like to see PNGs. They don't like to see any of those common files. What you should be doing is what's called a WebP file. WebP, and you can find free converters online. Talk to Niles after to make sure you're finding a reputable one. So there are a lot of converters that will convert your image to malware, and then you just happily upload that to your website. So get a good one.
Sounds
and
like
a
more
lot of
work, Daniel.
like Photoshop, you can convert into WebP. There's a lot of programs, even on desktop, that will allow you to convert into WebP. WebP is a format that helps you to keep more clarity in a high resolution image with a smaller package, faster load time. So at the end of the day, we highly recommend moving all your images over to WebP. There's not necessarily a particular size. It really is all about your load time. So if you are on a shared server, it's already slow, and you put a reasonable size image in there, your website's going to load slow. And that's what we want to avoid. If you own your own server and you have your own space and it's wildly fast, you have a little bit more leeway. So at the end of the day, it's more about your site speed than it is about the actual size of the images. And it also depends how many. So if you have a product page with 100 images on there, those better be pretty small, because that has to load 100 images before the website gets that full page, that full image, versus just a website that has 2 or 3. So it really is, it's not my favorite answer, but it depends on how many images that you actually have. But WebP is the format that I would recommend everybody use, because that is what people's looking for. It's better image quality, lower image size.
Nice. And then Margot is asking, do you know of any AI tools that can help assist with doing your blog, creating the social media from your blog, creating that email newsletter?
So, man, this is a completely different.
Kind of off topic here.
No, it's great, cause it's on topic, but it could be its own 3-hour seminar. I love, this is weird because I have a real love-hate relationship with AI. AI scares the living heck out of it and also amazes me. So I'll do both things. I'll play with it and get excited and then I'll go to bed and have nightmares. Like, what is this thing that we're playing? It's kind of scary. So ChatGPT, I mean, I always say that's, if you're gonna use one, that's the one. Because I've looked at a lot of other really expensive subscription programs for AI tools, and really they're just AI repackaged in a way that helps you with your prompts, but it's really just going back to ChatGPT and OpenAI. What I would say though is be very, 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 very careful. Because our firm has invested in unreasonable amount of money over the past 36 months because of AI in video. And the reason I'll kind of bring that up is because I truly believe, like, let's say that 50 companies that are hike companies plug an article in and say, write an article about the health benefits of hiking in Oregon. And then someone does that here in Prescott. Those articles are going to be so close to each other. They're going to have no personal differentiation between brands that we're starting to lose something. And it makes your work faster. But people are getting OpenAI, they're getting ChatGPT's impression on hiking, not you as the expert, not why you did it. There's none of that personal element there. Like, we work with a hot tub company and we have really stood against using AI and we pulled them off of it because the owner of it he believes in hot tubs like no one had ever talked to in their life. And it's just like, his stories are so different than ChatGPT. We'll ask him, like, okay, what's the benefit of hot tubs? And he was like, man, I can sell you hot tubs all day long, like everyone else does about. They'll have hot water and jets. That's it. That's what they do. He's like, you know what they do for me? They literally create a zone where you know what I never see? My kids on their phone. His phones do not work well with wet hands. So guess what? I get an hour a night with my kids, where we get to just have, and it's like ChatGPT wouldn't have got that.
It makes it
So-
that
Now it's,
personal, it brings it out to that personal level.
Does. And all of a sudden, it goes beyond that. And like I said, this could be a whole class on conversion. Your conversion rates go down the more you use AI. And the only reason I say that is it could be a beautiful article, but if someone walks into that same hot tub store, they're like, hey, I'm here, I read this article and I'm ready to go. Number one, you probably don't even know what that article said. Number two, it's probably pretty generic versus a dad coming in who getting a big tub of hot water with jets in his backyard for 10 grand, it's not worth it for him for that thing. But you know what is worth it? Being a hero to his family and more family time with his kids, which is a perishable asset that is just falling away. So when that dad comes in, he's like, dude, I read your article, spot on. Like, my kids aren't getting any younger. My wife and I, we're both busy having some family. I want to do that. You're going to sell that guy at 100%. Because he came in there because you sold to him the same way that means to you, and you're connected on a human level. Doesn't matter the price, doesn't matter any of that. He came in because what you said resonated. So, I mean, ChatGPT is amazing. I would use it for your outlines. I would use it to come up with some great ideas. Any legwork it can do. There's no comparison to having real people telling real stories that resonate. So, yeah.
It's the emotion you're talking about.
Yes.
And actually, you can program it depending on like what you buy. I haven't got that far. I'm kind of scared of that.
Yeah.
But there's actually another tool to use that's it's called Perplexity. That's another one. And that's actually even more in-depth than ChatGPT.
Well, okay, so tech is doing nothing but getting better. And one of the things, so we do a lot of work in retirement communities, in senior living. That's a big part of what we do. And we had one client that, just for people who don't know how that works, like, it's these placement agencies that try to do placements. They charge a lot of money when they make that placement to the community. So if they can outrank them, you can increase their profitability per lead by like 1%. It's amazing. There's not a lot of businesses who have that big of an impact. So we work a lot there. One of the companies there was just really looking to streamline efficiency. So they brought us on to do marketing for them, got them streamlined, got everything dialed in. But then they mentioned, we are streamlining this process and we can save this much per month by doing a chatbot instead of our real people now. And I was like, please don't, like, and it had nothing to do with us. We don't bill for that. That's not a service we provide. But I literally was like begging them, please do not, this is too personal. And sure enough, 4 months later, we got a call from the CEO and he was like, sorry, should have listened. And I'm like, what happened? It's like, I got a screaming phone call from a woman who went on there and said, I just spilled my guts out to a chatbot for 30 minutes before I realized it was a bot and it said, you want me to transfer you to a real person.
You're right.
My mom was just diagnosed with dementia. I'm looking for a place with her. And it was exactly what you mentioned. It had what was called like an AI sympathy engine, I think they called it, or something like that. And it was like, oh, wow. So she typed that in. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must be so difficult. She thought she was talking to a real person who understood what she was going through. And she just felt so stupid crying in front of a laptop to a bot. So yes, technology is getting better, but I will also say the better that technology gets, the more we are begging clients.
Right, it desensitizes people.
Yeah, and that's why we're going so hard on video. You know, I mean, going even farther on that whole point of this, when we talked about start with a blog post, we don't do that. We start with a video. So we would sit our hot tub client down and say, hey, you know, we just pull up 20 keywords in Google that people are asking. We're going to ask you that question. We ask you to repeat the question before you answer it. Each one of those is going to turn into its own video for YouTube. Then we're going to turn that into a blog post. Then we're going to turn it into social media. So it's actually wildly streamlined. But the fact is, when people get to see that person's face and see their emotion about, I have this because this is, I didn't buy a hot tub. I bought 5 more hours with my family every week. Game changer. It's different. So yeah.
Another question, what blog platform do you recommend?
So there's really no such thing as a blog platform anymore, because a lot of the times people would use a separate blogging platform other than their website. Your website is your blogging platform.
So we just stick with that then?
Yes, so if
Okay.
you have WordPress, it's an amazing blogging platform.
Okay, perfect.
Wix, Squarespace, I believe all of those also have pretty decent blogging platforms built into them. So yeah, you don't want to separate your domains, because now you're basically doing double work. You're pointing traffic to your blog and your website, and you can't convert a blog reader into a client and or customer from a third-party blog site. So those really need to be overlapped in all in one.
So the guy that I have on my website, working on it, just have them add another page for a blog on my website.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Here's another pro tip. Don't call it blog.
What do I call it?
Never call it blog, because to Google, they don't know if that is a 14-year-old kid sharing, you know, skateboarding or makeup tips, which really they're not too excited about. What you want to title that is news and articles.
Oh.
Because at the end of the day, Google looks at you and they're like, are you a news outlet who is talking about amazing breakthroughs in what you do? Or are you an industry leader who's actually writing news and articles? Or are you just blogging? Yeah, nice.
What do you think of calling it a learning center?
It depends what you do. So if you have something where you are, so one of our clients, that's what they do. Like, they are in education. They actually go into schools and they teach them how to get better. They have something that is titled something very similar to that, and it works for them. However, think about this, and I love SEO books because they're so wrong. If you read an SEO book, they talk about how amazing Google is. They're like, it can crawl every website in the entire world in a week. It's amazing, right? It is if it's true. The problem is, California just had a 5.3 earthquake. We had a couple friends text us like, oh my gosh, like this was crazy. We Googled it about 43 seconds after it happened, and guess what? It popped up. It didn't take a week. It's because Google crawls the USGC website every second, because there are tremors and earthquakes and all those things every single second. So they crawl them every second. If your website only puts out a blog every 6 months, Google is going to extend the amount of resources that they actually invest in your website to only crawl it every couple weeks, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever that is, because they're like, hey, we go there all the time. It's not worth our bandwidth because they never change it. You're constantly writing news and articles, that can change. And you can see when they index you. So when you go into your Google Search Console, Google Analytics, you can see when they crawl you. And people who start writing articles on a more regular basis, all of a sudden it's like, oh, your index time was about 3 weeks, it's down to 3 days. Because they're writing about news and articles. Extra credit as well, if you write about current events. So if something happens where Google's like, oh, these guys are on top. Like there was just a new study about, exercise and it's linked to heart disease. And you throw up an article and you're like, hey, you know what? Johns Hopkins just posted an article about, movement and heart disease. That's why we're so passionate about hiking. And then this other company wrote an article similar all about getting out in nature. So what could be better than getting exercise in, being out in nature, combining those efforts? Here's, great. That's a really cool article that you wrote about current events and topics. So if you can combine those, they're golden. Yeah.
Just a little topic on the same thing, but
Yeah.
with Monday's ruling against the monopoly against Google, how do you foresee, I know that the penalties and judgment hasn't come down yet,
Yeah.
but how do you foresee this changing with Google and your industry with what you do?
We've had so many phone calls on that over the past day. And it's really interesting because number one, it's kind of exciting if we're being honest about it, because Google has had such a monopoly that, it's plain as day. What it actually is. If you want to promote a video, where are you going to post it? Literally it's YouTube or nothing. Anywhere else you have to drive your own traffic there, you have to get found. Google, very similar. Here's the really cool thing. We have clients ask us this all the time, where we are doing a proposal for a client, we're going through everything, and they're like, one thing bothers me about your proposal, you don't mention Bing or Yahoo. And we're like, because we don't have to. Because Bing and Yahoo, basically, if you look at it in other search engines, follow what Google does. They're just a few weeks behind you. So Google really rolls out updates and then everyone else kind of adjusts it. So if we rank number 1 in Bing and you don't rank or number 1 in Yahoo, but you don't rank number 2 or 3 in Bing, it's very rare. It's super rare that you rank in Google, but you don't rank in Yahoo and Bing. So what I really am trying to teach clients is not to become too dependent on any search engine, but they understand how search engines, and that's kind of this, what Google wants is half the battle. Replace that with search engines, because they want the same thing, market share. So if we get into these really good habits, it's going to work every time. I've seen companies have to ditch their website, and I'm not gonna lie, I hate the term SEO. Every time I typed it on the slide deck, it killed me, because it harkens back to a time where SEO meant tricking Google for money. It's really what it meant. And it was just this race between unscrupulous SEO firms and Google. And we saw so many clients say, hey, we love what you guys have to say, love you guys, but this other company promised they can get us on the first page within 72 hours. And I was like, they can, but you're not gonna like how they do it. And sure enough, we get a call 6 months later and they're like, we just got a notice from Google. They just undexed our entire website. I'm like, yep, you have to start with a brand new domain. Because there's white hat SEO and black hat SEO. Black hat SEO is tricking you. And one of the clients where we literally had to have a very difficult conversation with them and say, hey, we went to an appeal, tried to get everything back from Google. What your SEO firm did was so egregious that they basically said, we will never index this URL ever again. So you have to get a new URL. So yeah, you had your company name .com, got to go with the .net now. You're done. And what they basically did was, let's say that they did hiking, so this company wrote in white text on a white background, hiking Prescott, hiking store Prescott, thousands of times. So back in the day, Google would look at that and be like, oh my gosh, they talk about hiking 1,000 times on their homepage. They have to be more relevant than this other thing. But it doesn't take them very long to catch on.
Okay.
And there's been just a series of people trying to get people getting this wrong. So to your question about, how does this potential antitrust and monopoly case against Google pan out? As long as we're doing the right things, we're okay. Really, search engines, no matter which ones emerge, or how Google, YouTube, however these things are broken up, search engines are always going to want to be the same thing. And a lot of the times it's a really fun exercise where we sit with a client, we're like, let's pretend that we don't own the hiking company. Let's pretend that we just collectively invented a search engine. What we want. And within 10 minutes, you start to see their faces kind of like change and they're like, I get Google now. Like someone searches for, rubberized hammer in blue. What do they want? we want to find something, hammer, rubber grip, in blue. Well, if they click on the page and it takes them to the homepage of Home Depot, it takes them 40 minutes to click through and figure out where to find it. Are they gonna keep using our search engine or gonna use someone else? We're gonna use someone else, of course. So why don't we have a page dedicated to rubberized blue hammers if that's our number one? Okay. It's really that. So if we can understand how to think like Google, think about those, we're good. All right. So just got the heads up, we've got time, so
We have about 10 more minutes. Did you answer that question about the second?
yep, so we went a little out of order. So yeah, we talked about that second search engine being YouTube because one of those questions was really good and well timed. So we hit that. Yeah, if there's any other questions, let's do it. This is your time. Yeah.
Do you do longer courses like your firm, or do you ever take interns in or teach this more in depth?
For sure. So we've done classes. I mean, an in-depth SEO class is really about 3 days, just because the first day is just understanding keywords, understanding how to analyze competitors. Then going into day 2, it's okay. So we understand what our competitors are doing. We know the race we're running. So it's like, hey, we're running a marathon. These 3 people who we're worried about, they run at the 4-hour mark. So hey, if we get to 350, we'll win this. We don't need to worry about anything past that. Then going through that. So yes, we do some longer classes, but it's about once a quarter we do this for sure.
Okay, so I'll just talk to you after. And then my
Okay,
second
absolutely.
question is, does social media, not search engines, run similar to this? Like if, say, you were an influencer, trying to be an influencer, which was a part of your business.
Yeah.
Would these things apply, or is it completely different?
They absolutely do apply, because at the end of the day, think about this. Social media is a form of search engine at the end of the day. And if you look at it, if we created a search engine here, it would be almost the same as a social media platform. What do we want? Well, we want to make money on our social media platform. We want to promote people who other people are likely to like, follow, subscribe to, and just always check back because they want to see their stuff. For that reason, if someone posted every hour on the hour, we're going to boost them like no other, because we want people to come back to our social media platform to see what they just posted, to see what they just did, to see what they just said. If it's the best influencer in the world and their reels are just out of control good, they post every other day this week and then every other month when they're busy, and we wouldn't promote them very much because there's no consistency for us to monetize. So yes, this consistency portion absolutely works.
A little related, and I'm guessing this could be another in-depth topic, so you can give me the short answer, but selling on Amazon then? Are there a lot of similarities with what you're talking about?
Yeah, so the question was about Amazon and if it's similar. So yes, Amazon works solely on an algorithm as well, but they're looking at different things. You can't be consistent in adding new products, but what you can be is consistent when it comes to the reviews that you're getting, when it comes to how fast you respond to reviews. We just did one of these all about Yelp in their search engine. And their search engine isn't about consistency of posting. It's about how fast you respond to a phone call and you get it. And actually I have a score right there that is actually public facing now, which is kind of interesting. It says this company takes 3 minutes to respond, this one takes 3 hours. Which one do they push out? So yes, there are different metrics for each platform. They all operate on metrics and an algorithm that we need to focus on what is. Yeah.
Christopher is asking, how important is domain name and presence of keywords in a domain name to SEO?
Oh my gosh, Chris, I love it. So yeah, one of the things that it's really important, and it's kind of a jujitsu move that we recommend for a lot of businesses. Picky Marketing Group, it's the dumbest name of any company that could possibly be. It's just literally, okay, let's slam my last name in, before what we do. Doesn't really tell people what we do, and it really doesn't have any domain authority to people. However, if we wanted to rank #1 for, hiking shoes, that's all we did. Let's go back to that. If we own the domain name, PrescottHikingShoes.com, we put Google in a really bad situation. For them, really good for you. Someone types in hiking shoes Prescott, and that's your business name. Now, here's the trick. It has to be your business name. If you have a completely different business name and a different URL, Google sees that as disjointed, and it looks like they're trying to trick Google. That actually can get you a penalty for what they call exact match domain. where you're like, okay, you're this company law firm, you rename yourself PrescottAttorneys.com, but that's not your business name. Okay, you're trying to trick us for ratings. So your business name has to be that as well. But if your business name was Prescott Hiking Club or whatever that looks like, if people typed in Prescott Hiking Club, and that's your business name and your URL, Google doesn't know whether people are looking for a hiking club in Prescott or if they're looking for the company, Prescott Hiking Club. So now all of a sudden, Google's like, if you don't put Prescott Hiking Club at least somewhere on the first page, and someone can't find that business, their Google My Business is titled that, their URL is titled that, their actual legal business name is that. What happens if someone's looking for that business and they can't find them on Google and they go to Bing or Yahoo? Dang it, we better put them up there somewhere. So yes, exact match URLs, as long as they match your business name, is a great tool. As long as you kind of have a niche market enough, you can do that. But yes, exact domains are very, very powerful.
Are there other forms of content that will do the same marketing as doing a blog? Kaylin is just not sure a blog will be beneficial to her business.
That's a big one. So I mean, really, and if you can type in the chat quickly, like what other types of content you were thinking, that would be awesome. I mean, content is king, no matter what type of content it is. If you post a great video to your website or to YouTube, you're going to get traffic from that video. Problem is just posting a page to your website with a completely white background and an embed from YouTube. I've never seen one of those rank well, because Google would rather put them on the YouTube platform instead of your page. Where you can get around that is if you have the written concept of that video. That isn't just the transcript, but it's rewritten with the proper keywords and things like that on your website with that video embedded. That's very powerful. But that really is technically considered a blog. I would just recommend that using articles, learning, whatever you want to name it is fine. But yeah, I have not seen a lot of other forms of content be as effective as written word on the website. And the more ways you supplement that, the better. A blog post with video, with infographics, any of that fun stuff, extra credit. That's all better. But without a blog, it's a little bit tough because Google looks at you as trying to sell a product and or service, not as an education service. And if you're trying to sell things, Google says, great, pay us our money. We have a pay-per-click platform. That's how we make our money. Pay us, we'll send you traffic. If you're giving out free content and free information, Google looks at it very different, says, we'll rate the information. And while they're on your website, they may buy.
If you have an online store with lots of photos with several hundred products, is it better to break them down into categories so that they have to load fewer of them at a time?
It absolutely is for load time, but even more important than that, as long as they are individual categories, that's really key. Because at the end of the day, if you sold 50 items, let's go back to the hammer example. If you had an online hardware store, you wouldn't want to have somebody click on a page that shows all of your products, where they have to scroll for 30 seconds to try to find a nail versus a screw versus a power drill. So you'd want to make sure that you have categories that, number one, make sense. So if somebody's looking for a particular product, the more niched down you can get, the better chance you have of break. Because people aren't typing in online hardware store. They're typing the exact thing. They're typing in, Makita power drill. They know the brand that they want. They know the item they want. The closer you can get them to that, the better. And try it. I mean, try any of the products that you have in your online store and Google one of those products and see the competitors that come up ahead of you. And I will promise you 90% of the time, it's going to be a competitor where you're not clicking on it and it takes them to their homepage. It's taking them to the exact product page. It's that whole green Nike running shoes and women's size 7 example. Google didn't just dump them on the homepage of Nike and say, hey, how about it? 5 minutes from now, you might find it. You're like, nope, Zappos, one click, you don't have to do anything. It's all there. So yeah, the more niche down you can get, the better for sure.
All right, great job, Daniel.
All right, thank you.
We'll take maybe a minute and see if Marie Towski-Beals would like to say a minute to talk a little bit about SBDC and what they might be able to do for you.
Thank you. Yes, the Small Business Development Center here at Yavapai College does offer no cost confidential business consulting to residents of Yavapai County and those starting businesses in Yavapai County. So if you're interested, please visit our website at yc.edu/SBDC. You'll find more information there. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, SCORE, for co-hosting this with us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will see you all soon. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal.
Goodbye, everybody.